Thank you very much for joining us on The Key Points. So we're asking what are the next steps in addressing the issues relating to the Appeatse community located near Bogosu in the western region. But just to give you a view of what the community looks like on a statistical level, and many thanks to the Ghana Statistical Service for providing us this data when we requested it. And the community, the Appeatse community, had 377 structures listed. As of the last census, 857 persons were enumerated. That is, they spent census night there. There were 437 males, 420 females, and 42% of the persons enumerated in the Appeatse community were under 15 years. 40% of those employed are engaged in agricultural activities and 44% in services. And 78% of the structures listed were fully completed, meaning of all the structures in that community, 78% of them were fully completed. Only 6% of structures in Appeatse community were wooden kiosks and structures. However, 65% of the structures listed were completed or at various stages of roofing for residential use. So that's a statistical view of the Appeatse community located near Bogosu in the western region, where this unfortunate deadly blast took place on Thursday afternoon. But let's hear from some of the victims recount the unfortunate incidents and how it has impacted them.
So Madonna, I'm about 21 years, for fun justice. No, but not some money solo, now send me away to the young bitter. The most solid and who should read the me, I had done it or basho. Some mammy, I will be shed them and go so many for bush, lay help. As I'm a bun or so Virginia Crown or video. It's about 21 years, for fun justice, only the way we can come up for the local school. Get a masses. One way. And the baby I there can do so. I had now for fire. There were old one do I at Simba for the way. Nina sent that is through bush one baby near the Wama.
Then I wash a quan when you see I don't want to wash it.
Pay for one was on my boy, and as I watch sitting here. Mato yancha midi ya wuni bidja mba wa school ina ya basa esra wa mabuaye
Munuku nemenkwala ebejinda oskani nyina ebejinda nyina ashi
otuminyane o ya kwada ne na tu asoro ye no Kasabe Blao, they have me.
Now, where are the Yama and Moborofin? The summer lay, one more boy. Looking at me, that's something I say, never I know. You know who you say. And then 7 I say. And then police in Bakuani now. I said, man, 15. I tell you, she will do not the name. I said, a mouth is a homoboy. This is never done into myself.
Now, who piano sit and bay?
The piano, brassing and brassing, and I'm a go for me to move for me now, if you are
now, if you don't see,
no fear, I say, I don't think I'm the man to be now for now. The phone now, you know, you say, what's the motor be moved to a number what we are now.
I'll come, baby, and now,
men and animal too now, or more Ephraim. Now, maybe I say, mouth fast, the idea, one picture. No more faster from Mama, more faster from Mama, 2.
To 107 now, was saying, when you over to my Wubia.
It does have in the BBI wife in the room. nti eko yaro na mom nko say nkeye mu bi ka ho.
Really harrowing accounts there. The first woman talked about losing her 21-year-old son, and that at the time that the incident was set to happen, he actually even asked her to move away. He moved towards the scene only to be caught up in the blast. And then the other woman talked about losing virtually everything, you know, burnt to the ground, the loss of people she loved, and pleas for help, you know. The other gentleman talked about the fact that he had also lost his child. And the last man talked about having some properties which he had also significantly lost, and 2 grandchildren who had also passed. And ultimately, they'd also been affected by the impact of the blast. And so many of these residents are picking up the pieces of their lives, at least whatever is left of it as they know it following this deadly blast. There are many who remain in hospital, and then there are others as well who need serious treatment, and the military have been kind enough to make available their aircrafts and helicopters to transport those who've been severely injured and need you know, more specialist care, which can only be provided in a bigger city like maybe Kumasi or in Accra. Now, the truck that was transporting these explosives is managed by a company, Maxim, and they had a collision with a motorbike. This sparked the explosion, which hit an electricity transformer that triggered this major explosive disaster. And I'm sure you've seen some of the pictures where we've seen a lot of devastation. I mean, it's like all the buildings have just crumbled to the ground, in addition to the crater that remains the only evidence of this, you know, very unfortunate and devastating disaster that has happened. One of the questions that has been raised is whether there was proper environmental health and safety protocol followed in the transportation of these explosives. As some of you may have followed the news, in 2017, the Interior Minister, Ambrose Derry, had questioned Maxim, one of the world's leading explosives manufacturers and technical services providers, about its processes. And in 2017, there was a media briefing in relation to that, and Mr. Ambrose Derry gave instructions asking them to ensure that they adhere to the law, ensure that they stick to the processes that allow for the transportation of these deadly equipment and items, which is typically used in mining. And since that question has come up, the police have been answering. Let's hear from ACP Kwesi Fori, who is the Director General of Police Public Affairs, addressing that question at Appeatse yesterday.
Say that the procedurally were properly done, and that there was a police escort, and the police escort assisted the driver in making sure that they alerted members of the public. And the police escort assisted the driver in making sure that they alerted members of the public. The policeman was part of those who came to the school to whisk the school children away. He was in the escort vehicle and he witnessed what happened. And even their escort vehicle was also used to evacuate the injured.
So, but for that, the casualty would have been higher.
Yes, had it not been that, even looking at the school building and looking at the number of school children in there, we could have registered something bad. but thank God they really assisted and spread out information about the danger, and a lot of people managed to run.
And that's ACP Kwesi Furi. He's the Director General of Police Public Affairs. Let's now go to the phone lines and speak to our correspondent, Ibrahim Abubakar, who's been covering this for us over the last 2 days. Ibrahim, so thanks very much for joining us as of this morning. Tell us, what's the situation at Appeatse now?
Well, I can still say Appeatse remains a ghost town. And the only people you find around are the police and military who are manning the area to ensure that the investigations are done and completed before they leave the scene. For now, the community is a crime scene, so no one is being allowed in. In fact, they are still combing around to see whether they will be able to find anyone being trapped. Because still, as at yesterday, we had people who were saying they are unable to locate their friends or relatives, and they've not seen them among the dead. They've not seen them among those who have been hospitalized. And for that matter, the fear is that they may have been trapped under the debris. So that is what the police and the military are also doing, just moving about, just checking around to make sure that in case anyone has been trapped, together with the NADMO and other rescue team, they will pull the person out, whether dead or alive. So the residents are still traumatized. Most of them, you look at them and you realize that they would need psychological assistance one way or the other, especially for those who have lost their relatives, those who have lost their children, wives, mothers, brothers. Most of them are still yet to come to terms with the reality. Some still believe it is a dream. They are hoping that they will just go back to sleep, wake up, and will be told, well, it is a dream and life will come back to normal. As we speak, the residents want to move to their communities, at least to enter in there and see whether they will be able to salvage one or two of their items. But like I said, no one is being allowed in because it is a criminal scene. So still most of them work from Bogo. So they have been relocated to Bogo. So that's where they've been given a place to sleep. Some halls that the government has been able to secure, halls that some missionary churches have provided for them to sleep. So in the morning, like I speak to you, most of them move from that place to Appeatse, which is from Appeatse to Bogo, so it's about 5 minutes drive. They still go there, even though they are not being allowed access to the community itself, but they still come around, just observe what is happening, and they are still in shock. And they are hoping that they will soon forget. In fact, some of them are even telling me that there is no way they will forget this day. Even if the government, as promised, clears the area and rebuild the community for them, they will still miss the feel of the community, how it was structured, especially the house of Mr. Kofi Appeatse, the person who built the community. You know, the history of the community is just interesting. There are settlers there, and there was this one Mr. Kofi Appeatse who came from Cape Coast, settled at Bipo in between. Appeatse is in between Bipo and Bogo. So, and he was a herbalist. And based on what he was doing, the chief of Bipo gave him that place to settle. So he built a house. That is the house that at least people sometimes come to have a feel of how the place is. This is the house of the man who built this community, and now everything is gone. So even if the community is rebuild again, they wouldn't have those monumental places to visit. So
yeah,
it's still a shocking situation for most of them here.
So Ibrahim, you talk about people missing. So I think much of the data we've had has been about the dead and the injured. So we know that initially it was 13 dead. I understand later on one person died at the hospital, so that should be 14. About 60 we are being told severely injured. So tell us, is there a count of how many people are missing? We know NADMO was doing an assessment. Certainly it's not over. Any count about how many people may be missing?
For now, that has not been made. You even asked NADMO about it. They are unable to tell us the number of people they suspect to have been missing. In fact, for them, they are saying they cannot even confirm that because it is possible the person may be somewhere else, but they are still pushing. For the missing people, it is when sometimes we engage with the people and they tell us, but when you ask NADMO about it, they are unable to tell you anything about missing people. For them, the only figure they are dealing with is the injured and the dead. So there is nothing about the missing people.
Now, we know that there was a high-powered government delegation that visited the community yesterday, led by the Vice President. Since then, the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources has issued a number of directions and issued statements. We'll bring that to viewers and listeners later on. But I wanted to ask, what's the plan for today? We know what happened on Thursday and then yesterday, Friday. Is there a view about what happens today, tomorrow?
So there isn't any arrangements. In fact, as I speak to you now, some of the residents are agitated. Like you rightly mentioned yesterday, government delegation were here. They gave them some assurances that the community will be rebuilt. But in the interim, they will find a place for them, a conducive place for them to lay their heads. In fact, yesterday evening, for the women and children, they had a place to sleep, even though they were crowded in the hall, but at least it was better. The men were also there, but they decided that no, they cannot allow the men and the women to sleep in one hall. So the decision was that the men will be sent to a nearby hotel, Golden Hotel. Yesterday, as at 10 p.m., when we got here, they were stranded. They had their mattresses because mattresses had been provided to them by some corporate institutions, individuals, and other things as part of the relief items. So each person was given a mattress. So when we got here, most of them were holding their mattresses, didn't know where to go and sleep. They were stranded within the premises of the hotel. So some were compelled to even put the mattress on the floor and sleep because we know that some of them were injured even though they've been treated and discharged. So they were still in pain. They couldn't stand for long. So they were sleeping. It was after we did the story on News at 10. This morning I came here and they were telling me later some officials came and found a place for them to sleep. And this morning they are even complaining that the place given to them was full of mosquito, a whole lot. So they seem agitated that the promises, the assurance given to them by the Vice President and other government officials, they did not meet their expectation as at last night. So this morning what they are doing is that they are conveying them back to the parish hall. There is a missionary house where the women slept. That's where all the relief items were being sent to. So they are conveying the men back to that place to at least have something to eat. For food items and other things, for now, at least I would say in the next few days, they wouldn't have much of a problem because I realize most food items have been brought as at yesterday. But their issue has to do with where to sleep. For them, it is laudable that government has plans to build the community for them, but they are also looking at the timeline. When exactly government is starting, when government is completing. Because for them, if it will delay, then it will just be of help for the government to clear the place for them, assist them, for them to rebuild. If at least it is a wooden structure, they can put it there temporarily before they put the main structure. Because it stands now, yesterday they had difficulty in accessing the place to sleep. They don't know what will happen today and the days ahead.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim Abubakar. He is my colleague, is the Ashanti region correspondent there, but moved to Bogoso to cover this for us together with our team from the Western region. Many thanks there, Ibrahim. So let me just bring you up to speed on some of the statements that have come through. As many of you know, there have been condolences obviously coming from various quarters, from the Speaker of Parliament, from the Ghana National Association of Teachers, because as all of this happened, lots of schools were impacted. Thankfully, we didn't have too many children because they were evacuated in good time, even though a few children were also injured. And then since then, there's also an environmental advocacy group that had issued a statement raising concerns, and they are the Ghana Environmental Advocacy Group. They do a lot of advocacy in reference to Galamsey. But I'll just read their statement for you because it relates to how we manage very delicate situations in reference to the use of explosives and the like for mining. And it says, we at the Ghana Environmental Advocacy Group, like many Ghanaians, have watched in horror the events of the last 24 hours, resulting in the loss of many lives at Appeatse, a suburb of Bogoso in the western north region of Ghana. Now, while accidents are always not preventable, they acknowledge that this accident and the resulting explosion of the highly dangerous explosives that caused these countless injuries, deaths, and devastations was entirely preventable leaves us dumbfounded. It's common knowledge that our resource-rich communities continue to bear the brunt of unbridled exploitation, crippling neglect, and underdevelopment, that they would also be at risk of such blatant disregard for our laws, specifically with respect to the transportation of dangerous goods, is irresponsible as best. This gory accident presents so many questions that need answers, such as what is the requirement under our existing laws regarding the transportation of dangerous goods, where these laws enforced, where safety protocols deployed, what happens to the people of Appeatse, what preventable measures are being put in place, given that trucks filled with gas and other explosive cargo continue to ply our roads, many of which are in a deplorable state, especially in the western region, while dodging craters, aboboya, and motor riders with almost sometimes no escort. And they are calling, that is the Ghana Environmental Advocacy Group, are calling for a parliamentary committee to undertake a thorough review of the incident and the steps that government intends to take to ensure compliance with existing laws regarding the transportation of explosive devices and flammable materials in the country. They say that while we commiserate with our departed brothers and sisters, we wish the injured speedy recovery. We call on the government of Ghana, the Ghana Police Service, and all ancillary agencies in Ghana to get to the bottom of this disaster, to bring fair and just punishment to all those involved in this mayhem and get us the needed answers. And that is signed by Elizabeth Va. She is the lead advocate for this group, the Ghana Environmental Advocacy Group. Well, since then, the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources has issued a statement, and I'll just go through that. And then shortly, we'll speak to one who has expertise in that area, a mining engineer, and lawyer, also has a certificate as a blast man. So first, let's hear from the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. Says this statement says, pursuant to Regulation 2 of the Minerals and Mining Explosives Regulations 2012, LI 2177, the Chief Inspector of Mines is the Chief Inspector of Explosives and is responsible for the supervision of the manufacture, storage, transportation, and use of explosives for mining and mine support services. Consequently, the Honourable Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abujinapo MP, has, as of 21st January 2022, that's yesterday, directed the Chief Executive Officer of the Minerals Commission to interdict the Chief Inspector of Mines with immediate effect, pending the outcome of the ongoing investigation into the tragic events which took place at Appeatse. Further, the Honourable Minister has directed the Chief Executive Officer of the Minerals Commission with immediate effect to suspend the registration of Maxam Company Limited with the Minerals Commission, thereby precluding the company from the manufacture, transportation, and or supply of explosives for mining operations pending the outcome of investigations into this matter. The Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources wishes to assure the Ghanaian public that the ongoing investigations will be thorough and comprehensive, and any public official found culpable will be made to face the full rigors of the law. So let's now speak to Mr. Theophilus Jimaga. He is a mining engineer. He's also a private legal practitioner, but he's had extensive experience working in the mines, as well as has a certificate as a blast man. Thank you very much, Mr. Jimaga, for speaking to us. Good morning.
Good morning, Jifa. How are you doing?
Not bad, sir. Thank you for asking. So first, what are the immediate thoughts that come to your mind as somebody with expertise in this area about the incident that happened at Appeatse? The police tell us that there was escort, and it is part of the safety protocol that encouraged the escort to get people out of the way, that reduced, the death toll that we see. But what comes to your mind when you reflect on all that has been said and what has happened?
Yeah, Jifa, good morning to your cherished listeners and viewers. My investigation initially revealed that there was actually no escort vehicle. There was a policeman escorting the explosives in the truck. Generally, you would like to see an escort vehicle in front of the explosives truck. But in this particular instance, my understanding is that there was no escort vehicle. So if there had been a policeman in another vehicle in front of the explosives truck, I expect that would have prevented what has happened. Nonetheless, as a nation, I feel that we have not done enough education and sensitization about dangers of explosives. There are some mining companies who deal with cyanide, and they do mock drills about cyanide spillage, etc., within the communities where they operate, and they are aware about the dangers of cyanide transportation, etc. But as a nation or as an industry, we've not done enough education and sensitization about explosives, transportation of explosives, and what the responsibilities are to on the ordinary citizen. So an ordinary person seeing an explosive truck passing by can decide to drive anyhow, anywhere, anyhow near the explosive truck. So I think as a nation and as an industry, there is a gap there which we need to fill about the sensitization and education about where the route that the explosive truck take and the impact or potential impact of an accident on the community. That aside, I mentioned earlier that my understanding is that there was no escort vehicle. So when company takes the permit from the Chief Inspector of Mines to transport explosives, who actually monitors from point A to point Z, that is actually not done. It is only the company that is transporting the explosives duty to make sure that they are doing that. Beyond that, there's nobody who monitors them from point A to point Z. So we will not be able to, as it were, arrest any unfortunate situation in between point A and point Z.
Now, Mr. Jimaga, one of the questions I guess many are asking is that we've had mining in Ghana for what? Almost a century, if not even more. And this is the first time we're having such significant disaster in relation to explosives. This company had been cited in 2017, and there is a news article in reference to that, where the Minister for Interior at the time, in fact, he's still the Minister of Interior, Bruce Derry, addressed the media in that regard. And he mentioned that Maximum Explosives Company has been one of the institutions the ministry had granted a permit to operate, but they have not met the regulation to secure their magazines as stated by the regulator. That's just a quote from that press conference. He also had visited their site and was not exactly happy about how they were organized. To be fair, this was 4 or 5 years ago. But the question I guess one will then ask is, for big mining companies, are they also required to ensure that the third-party contractors or the service providers they are dealing with along the value chain meet the required EHS protocols, so that we don't see this kind of incident as we've seen?
Yes, Jifa, it is such that according to the regulation LI 2177, regulation 28, the application for storage, manufacture of license of explosives is valid for a year. So if there had been an incident in 2018 for which the minister had concern, in the renewal, it says that the commission shall renew the license if the applicant satisfies the conditions for license under the sub-regulation. So at the point of renewal of the yearly license for storage, manufacture, and transport of explosives, one would have expected that these things would have been captured and addressed. Now, if it is a situation where we have identified that the company in question does not meet regulatory requirements, it behoves on the minister or the sector, the Minerals Commission, to ensure periodic checks on this company to ensure that they meet the regulatory requirements. That aside, you see, my lecturer once said that when you are dealing with explosives and you don't take care, you will not be alive to tell the story. Unfortunately, the Maxam company guys are alive now to tell the story. Those who are not alive to tell the story, we are not actually the potential causes of this accident. But what I'm trying to draw your attention to is that if a company is not meeting our regulatory requirements, it is important that we don't renew their permits. So somebody somewhere must carry the can for renewing their permit if they are not meeting the regulatory requirements. Now, this accident, as we have seen it, you mentioned that mining has been with us for a long time. It means this has been boiling to happen. Now, going forward, what are the steps we need to take such that it doesn't happen again? So I would expect that the Chief Inspector of Mines, in fact, he is interdicted. You read the press release. I will address that later. I would expect that the Minerals Commission will take steps to ensure that all other companies that are manufacturing, storing, and transporting explosives meet the regulatory requirements to the latter. Because when things like this happen, people will not be alive to tell the story. Again, I mentioned earlier that we have not done enough education and sensitization. If we have done that, what is going to happen is that lives will not have been lost as they are now. The community would have gone, property would have been destroyed, but life may not have been lost as we have it in the moment. Now, if I will address the press release you mentioned earlier, in my opinion, I feel it's too early for the Chief Inspector of Mines to be interdicted. Chief Inspector of Mines' position has, since independence, been non-political. It has survived all governments, etc. And the Chief Inspector of Mines has a duty in carrying out investigations into this accident. If a committee is formed to investigate the accident, the Chief Inspector of Mines, the Chief Inspector of Mines could be asked to step aside. But to ask him, to interdict him at this stage, in my opinion, is too early. Though somebody must carry the can, I think that interdicting the Chief Inspector of Mines will divert attention from what we have on the ground. because the people in the Minerals Commission are professionals. Whether the Chief Inspector of Mines is there or not, they will do their job and they will do it professionally. So to me, and a number of my colleagues in the industry have also expressed the view that interdicting the Chief Inspector of Mines at this stage is too early and it's needless.
So if it's too early to interdict the Chief Inspector of Mines, what would then be the best approach? We know there's an investigation. However, we are not sure if that investigation will trigger an entire audit of all the companies that engage in that space, which is a third-party contracting space. It's part of the, mines value chain.
Yes, as I indicated earlier, the Chief Inspector of Mines has a role to play at this moment, especially with regard to the regulation LI21.
So for you, is it your view that he needs to be part of this, whether it's a committee or probe that would be ongoing, and so he shouldn't be taken out of that equation? Is that the view you hold?
My view is that we will have a preliminary report first. So when that preliminary report comes out, then a committee could be formed or constituted to investigate the cause of the incident and to give as recommendation going forward. And when that committee is formed, the Chief Inspector of Mines may be excused. Then the accident investigation can take place. But at this moment, the Chief Inspector of Mines has a role to play in the preliminary investigation. So asking him to step aside now will all appear that somebody is carrying the can when we have not reached that stage where somebody should carry the can immediately. That is my view. So at this stage, let the committee bring out the preliminary report. A committee is formed, or the mine inspectors in the Western region. Currently, they've been there since yesterday. They've been there the night before, and they'll be there this morning. They are carrying out their investigation. When that is done, and they submit their preliminary report, which I believe could happen Monday, Tuesday, then a committee will be formed to look into the overall operation and overall incident. Then the Chief Inspector of Mines could be asked to step aside so that the committee will carry out its work.
Now, final question to you, Mr. Jimaga, and this is about the transportation of dangerous mining items, whether it's gas, whether it's, all the other things used for mining. Is there no other way to transport these other than by road? Our roads are through villages and small towns. It's almost as if we create the environment for the disaster to happen. Is there no way the companies can transport these dangerous items without having to be going through our small towns and villages? And the roads are not, great. They are bumpy, they are undulating, they are not smooth.
Now, the regulation actually makes provision that local authority where the explosives are transported can designate where the explosives will be transported. For example, if they are transporting between Bogosu and Takwa, the local authorities between Bogosu and Takwa can designate where the explosives will be transported. The other thing is that the escort of the explosives are actually meant to forestall things like this. The escort vehicle goes ahead with a beacon that alerts potential persons along the way that this is a dangerous material that is being transported. The explosive truck itself has a beacon. It has 4 signs: the front, the side, and the rear, written in red on white background as danger explosives. These are things to alert the other road users of what is being transported. Again, back to what I said at the beginning, the education and sensitization is missing. So if we manage to get something like that done, then people along the routes where we are transporting will know that the material being transported is dangerous. Secondly, we don't have a lot of the other means of transportation. The material being transported is so bulky. Ammonium nitrate is so bulky, it can't be transported by air. Our rail network between where the mining communities are is non-existent. So the only way we have at the moment of transporting this material is by road. So we should take appropriate steps to make sure that the transportation is done properly despite the challenges we are facing at the moment.
Thanks very much, Mr. Jimaga, for speaking with us. We'll continue to be in touch with you as we continue coverage of all this. But we also have some text messages that have come through. Let's bring them to you. This one from All Wise, he writes, "My condolences to the people of Bogoso." This one from Aaron at Latebi Okoshi reads, "I think the disaster management services should do their best to advise the Ghana Fire Service to roll out a nationwide volunteer training program for all those interested in the fire service activities, basically to assist our traditional communities anytime there's a major fire outbreak or disaster. They would then be the first point of call to control the fire before the fire service can get there to save the situation." Prince from Sandema says, "My condolences to the people of Appeatse who lost their loved ones." And Lawrence from Asoko writes, "The culture of getting close to a scene and filming happenings is becoming disturbing. It's all over. The most inhumane aspect is that individuals become so focused and hinged on the filming instead of helping others to salvage a situation. They want to be the first to break the news. Rest in peace to all those who were affected." Thank you very much for your messages, and you can send us some more to our number. It's 055-369-8789. And if you also want to send a tweet, you can also tweet at me. My handle is @Beho Bampo, and I think some of you have sent messages. I'll bring that to you. But let's speak to the MCE for the area, Dr. Isaac Dasmini. Good morning to you, Dr. Dasmini, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, fine morning.
Our condolences to you and the entire community, sir.
You're welcome.
Right. Now, what is the plan going forward for the people of Appeatse and the community as a whole? We've seen the initial emergency response. What are you going to be doing for the rest of the days ahead?
Thank you very much. Let me send my greetings to your listeners, and then let's give me an opportunity this morning. Since the incident happened 3 days ago, we are managing to host the people and then probably providing them with some meals. There has been some donations from all, and a lot of people have come in to support. And then we have a lot of items that we are giving it to them. Go for Ghana, Gaming, FGL, Tobinco Pharmacy, and there are a lot of people are also on the way coming. And some people too have also promised building materials and other things that we want to actually start in earnest and then do some constructions for the people, as the Vice President promised. So what we are doing right now is to do the community registration and know the number of households that we need to construct, and then how we are going to manage some of the victims. So as I speak to you this morning, I'm engaging the community, and then my engineers are also on site, and then trying to find out the number of households that we have within that community, and then the building materials. We are appealing to some other organizations, and now what we need is the building materials that we need to support them to start the reconstruction in earnest. And then what we are doing is after the registration, that some of them have some relatives around that we feel that they can go and stay, then we'll allow them to go. And then those that don't have anybody around, we find a way of managing that whilst we begin with the reconstruction. So I'm meeting the security agencies this morning to wrap up their investigation and other things, maybe by the close of the week, maybe tomorrow, so that by Monday we'll start clearing the site, and then we'll do planning, and then so the materials that we'll be receiving will go straight to go into the construction as early as possible.
Is it safe for the community to return to the area and try and resume their life as they know it?
Yes, for now the experts are saying that now the place is okay, because it's a gas. So the moment it exploded, everything has vanished into the atmosphere. So, and the people do not also want to relocate because it's just along the roads. So, I mean, they just want to go back, and there are some houses that actually the roofs were ripped off. So those ones, I mean, they are especially far away from the road. They just want the reconstruction to provide them with the roof sheet and others to also roof their houses so that it will reduce the numbers that we are hosting at the center currently.
I know the emergency response and relief is still ongoing. We know about the number of dead. Now we know it's 14. Has it gone up or it remains 14?
No, it's now 14. Even it was 13 yesterday. It was the evening that the one that we sent to Kumasi, the 4 that we sent to Kumasi, one also passed away. So it's still 14. It's only the reported cases that actually increased. But I mean, they are all fine. They are all doing fine because some of them also went to the hospital yesterday, after the editing. And then we are also engaging some priests and other people, some pastors to also psych some of them their minds and they cancel some of them. So we are actually on the ground. And this morning, I received a call from the First Lady's office that they are also bringing some relief items this morning.
There's a talk about some family members saying their loved ones are missing. Is that something that has come to your attention? Are you able to give a view about how many people may be missing?
Yeah, that is why we are doing the registration. And now, where the building collapsed, these buildings, fortunately, because they were thatched houses, I mean, that is why the casualty, I mean, if you look at the way the whole thing happened, if it was to be a blockhouse, the casualty would have gone up, especially the death. But because, the whole place is thatched houses, I mean, sometime, after the editing, we were able to remove all the distance and then search through the rubbles. And as at now, the rescue team is, today is our third day. We'll do the final, test today, but we searched through all the corners. So we asked the community members to come around this morning so that those who can survey some of their things, they may take them up, and then so that once we wrap up the search, then probably we can get some machine to clear up the site. Then we have also started registering the family members, because some of them ran into the bush when the whole incident happened. So it was yesterday that a lot of people came around. They started looking for their relatives. But as we are saying, we are talking about 14 deaths. So probably if they are not seeing them there, they might be among. And apart from that, the rest we are managing to control and put all the families together.
In terms of compensation, I know the investigations are ongoing and recommendations are yet to be made. But is there a plan for compensation, knowing fully well that this company, though a third-party contractor, was transporting this, and when this accident happened, and then the final point was Chirano Mines as well? Any word on that?
Those ones, they are the police. I will leave it to the regulatory body. They are people who are regulating the activities, and then when some of these incidents occur, they will also set up their investigation and then come out with a recommendation, and then we probably will implement it.
As an MCE, what is it that you need immediately to help you do your work well? What would you want?
What I need now is maybe building materials. They need building materials that people will make it available. Because if we are talking about food, for how long can we keep them in the center and feeding them? So I think what they need is to get a place to house them. So immediately I will appeal to all the organizations that they should come into our aid in the form of maybe a cash donation or maybe building materials that we can use to construct the building. Because if we are constructing, we need to pay some people, some contractors and other things. So we are making sure that everything that they bring, we are going to put everything on good use. Because right now I'm going to set up a committee on Monday that will foresee all these things that will make sure that we do the reconstruction for the people in Appeatse.
Any final words, sir?
What I want to say is that so far, there has been some massive support. Of course, I know people are on the way coming today, and I'm very happy about the support that I've received from the Vice President and then the team, the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. Yesterday, the IGP was also here yesterday, and then I want to thank all of them for giving me the massive support. And I also want to assure that I'm going to work hard and make sure that affected families are well housed, and then so that at least, they may also be able to go around with the activities in a peaceful way.
Thank you very much, Dr. Isaac Dasmini, who is the MC for the Pristia Huni Valley area where Appeatse near Bogoso is located there. We wish you all the best. We have more text messages. Let me bring them to you. Significant number of them that have come through. This one from Musa in Kumasi. It says, on the issue of the disaster witnessed recently and so many similar disasters in the past, what did the law say? Whose negligence caused these to happen? And what are the remedies to ensure there will not be a repetition? I believe that these are the issues we should focus on this time around. Someone should not be made to go scot-free. People have lost lives and property, and it's unacceptable. Yiba from Mushi Zongo in Tamale says state institutions need to enforce regulations enshrined in the statutory books. Some of these incidences are avoidable once we insist that the right things are done without fear or favor. Rahim in Tamale writes, Bogoso explosion video really got me thinking deeply. Just 1 second you are here, the next minute you're gone. It's very sad. My deepest condolences to the deceased families and speedy recovery to the injured. This one says, my condolences to the people of Appeatse. Our authorities need to also know that settlements along highways are not appropriate. It's high time we start moving people away from highways, just as we see in other parts of the world. You didn't identify yourself, but thank you for your message. Farouk in Tamale North writes, the people of Bogoso need quick intervention from government to salvage what they've lost. My condolences to the bereaved family. Teria from Techiman says, it's a very sad situation. We hope this will serve as a lesson to all institutions that are responsible for the safe transportation of explosives and other equipment or facilities. It's unfortunate. A lot of the time we allow the unfortunate to happen before we tighten our belts. And Obing from Ahafo and Mim says, Ghanaians can be something else. Why did they not run for their lives instead of seeking to film what was going on? My condolences to the bereaved. And I'll bring some of the messages also coming on Twitter. Some of you have been sending me some. Let's read it. Jacob Dinko says, my condolences to the bereaved families of Appeatse. It's sad to have experienced a disaster such as this due to the explosion of chemicals and explosives by a company that is not operating properly given the situation. This one from Baba Chairman says, the disaster in Appeatse is indeed a very sad one. My condolences to the bereaved families and speedy recovery to all those who've been injured. This one from Papa J Jr. It says, I won't be surprised that if after some 2 or 3 weeks, the government and all of us forget about the people of Appeatse. We've seen things like that happen in this country, so we should not forget. This one also from John, it says, thank you very much for your program. Those were some of your messages also on Twitter. Many thanks for sending them to us. But for those of you who may not know much about Appeatse, let me just bring you a few statistics thanks to the Ghana Statistical Service that brought us that data. And you know that we had a census just last year, and based on the collections, what we know about the Appeatse community is that at the last census, some 377 structures were listed. That is, they were either completed completed or uncompleted to the lintel level. Now, as of the last census, 857 persons were enumerated there, meaning they spent census night there. 437 of them are males and 420 of them are females. 42% of the persons enumerated last year in Appeatse are children under 15 years of age. 40% of those employed are engaged in agricultural activities, 44% in the services sector, and 78% of the structures listed were fully completed. 6% of the structures were wooden structures and kiosks, and 65% were also listed completed at different stages of completion for residential use. So that's just a statistical overview of Appeatse community near Bogoso in the Western region. You've been watching